since I've been involved in district and directly involved with the third tier of governance structure here, so I'll be giving more relevant examples from the field rather than from the first tier and the second tier, sir. So citizen engagement, yes, sir, definitely we are open and we are trying our best. Since I've also in the past worked with the NGO sector, so I know the side of civil society organizations as well. So in the first level, sir, I think we engage in the form of sharing of information. So some information, since we are legally bound under RTI, we have to share. So we share it through those means. However, more proactive measures like wall writings, that SECC list is there, socioeconomic caste census data is there, through which beneficiary selection for various schemes are happening, like Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is happening through that. So we publish that priority list through wall paintings on the Panchayat Bhavan, so that people are not duped in the name of that your name is there or we'll include your name, because already that list is existing. Then we, like in Khuti, when I was placed there previously, we have been doing very proactively Janta Samvad, Vikas Melas every Thursday in every block. We had 6 blocks, so that all the district officials used to themselves go to all Gram Panchayats and hear the grievances and answer the questions of the people.
First of all, as a parliament, we have to avail of the tools that we get inside the parliament, which is through questions, through provoking debates, through getting the minister to reply on what has been the progress on some of the government schemes. A tool that I found useful for me was to actually look at what laws currently exist in the area of environment, especially with the Air Act and the Water Act, and therefore what are the requirements in order to amend it, in order to so that the law is implemented better in today's times. And I found the inputs of civil society and academia very useful. One of the things I have pushed for in a private member's bill is that it's not just an environmental issue or an ecological issue. Pollution has a health perspective, and it is a health issue as well when we specifically speak of air pollution, because of the impact on the lungs of our children and elderly. And we can clearly see how fragile our lungs are, especially in the COVID pandemic. I think that's been very useful in getting the government to respond as well. I think government accords different priorities to different sectors. And I think the health sector, the health narrative, of course, takes a greater priority for this government. Secondly, I think what has been useful is that, you know, we talk about different stakeholders, and of course, in a field of environment and science, there will be different organizations and different methodologies in terms of how to work on an issue like air pollution. Should we have more technical data? Should it be a much more media-intensive campaign? Should we be very aggressive in our criticism of the government? Should we actually be more supportive? So I always welcome different thoughts. I always welcome diversity and debate. I think it's very important, because otherwise you run the risk of being stuck in an echo chamber.
IT has already allowed for a large amount of people participation to come in, whether it is through Twitter-driven media. For example, during the COVID crisis, what we saw was that even as an agent of the government and an agent of the state, there were many times we could not reach out to interstate boundaries, couldn't breach interstate boundaries. Yet a tweet with regard to, say, food aid sent to a chief minister's office would immediately elicit a response, or a Mumbai police would elicit a response, which normal day-to-day would not be. So in that sense, I think IT has already kind of helped. Also with the promulgation of what you said, something about media being basically what will the media pick up? So yes, the national media will pick up something which is much more nationally important, but we have seen a proliferation of WhatsApp groups as a method of news dissemination. For example, even in small blocks, you have these small WhatsApp groups which are run out of where just news flashes are given out, which are very local news. And you even had a new website that came on, which did great work. For example, in Jharkhand, there's a news wing, which actually has no website per se. It's a WhatsApp-based news channel. So its method is that it uploads something on the internet and then sends out a small snippet on it on WhatsApp to about 10,000 people who then forward it on. So these are methods by which people participation has definitely increased.
I think it's always important for people in the government to hear out multiple perspectives before designing any policy intervention or taking any decision. Not only because that's, and as many as possible, not only because that's the democratic process, but also because that gives us an idea of the kind of consequences that a policy intervention may have, including sometimes consequences that one may not have thought of or envisaged. However, it's also not possible, as you very well know, having been an administrator yourself, to continue stakeholder consultations endlessly. As you yourself said, citizens are divided. The fact that they're divided shows that there are multiple perspectives. And therefore, it's equally important to take a difficult decision sometimes, which will involve trade-offs, because one recognizes that one can't make everybody happy. And the difficult task, it's quite a difficult task of the policymaker, is to choose the best possible option in their judgment. And it's a judgment call. And we're making these decisions constantly, every day, on what you call wicked problems. And I think as an administrator, the best one can hope for is that the majority of one's decisions are the right ones in the long run. And of course, that all one's decisions have been made in good faith. I would say that one should also be ready to make course corrections, because that's also an element of responsive governance, and for which you will need to keep the communication channels open.
One of the things that we've seen in Karnataka is that you had a pretty good system of Gram Sabhas institutionalized over a period of the last 18 to 20 years through several amendments in the law. And one of the decisions that was taken a few years back was that every Gram Sabha would be videographed. But I remember that once a deputy commissioner, or actually a CEO of a Zilla Panchayat, sat down and watched the videos, and then went and looked at the beneficiary list and found that there was a 30% variation between the beneficiary list as decided and as recorded on the videos and what was finally recorded. So there is a lot of a slip between the cup and the lip that is happening. How do you improve the quality of the responsive chain that is triggered by the Gram Sabha? I'm sure the Gram Sabhas will be conducted well, but then the responsive chain has to be improved.
I think the Gram Sabha can only be improved. I remember an old director of ours at the academy, Mr. B.N. Yugandhar, used to say that the only cure for bad democracy is more democracy. And so if a Gram Sabha is loud and chaotic and has multiple people speaking with very sharply divided views, I think the only way to improve that is to bring in even more perspectives of those whose voices haven't yet been heard.
Loopholes within our system, sir, because the people who are actually the panchayat sachivs who are engaging while formulating these plans, they are overburdened with the work. They are mostly given charge of 2-3 panchayats because of the lack of the numbers in which they are there. They have the skill set which should be there with them. They don't have that much of skill set. The new recruitments have not happened they have been in the field for last 20, 30 years now. And involving them, upgrading their skill is a challenge for us. So ensuring that a proper and a healthy participation and transparency is ensured is still a challenge. However, as I said, sir, if we do a more proactive way of like self-help groups, VO, CLFs have now come up as a beautiful body, like in Jharkhand, sir, while we are implementing various schemes like PDS, for example, the rations are being distributed, the ration shops are being run by an SHG group, which has actually brought a tremendous change and it has brought much more transparency.
What I would like to see more of is the capacity building. I think there's much more room for training. So of course, you can't, you have to hire the talent that you have and the talent that applies, but you can, through on-job capacity building, expose them and upgrade them. I think there is a willingness to learn, B, I think, again, to overcome the resource constraints and capacity constraints, you have to work on partnerships a lot more. And that's what the examples have been quoted in by other speakers as well. So you have to rely on academia, you have to rely on local intellectuals, you have to rely on local NGOs. So you have to be innovative in your responses as well, because the situation from village to village is different. And therefore you have to have the flexibility to, as Umaji said, to listen to multiple stakeholders and able to engage multiple stakeholders as well. Thirdly, I think technology does play a very strong role. You have to find technology not only for broadcasting or dissemination of information, which is essentially what is happening through the local WhatsApp groups or through the local electronic media channels, but I think we have to come up with technology platforms which also help in at least in evaluation and program evaluation as well.
IT can never be a panacea for all cures. However, I think the role of IT that has happened is that whether it's the same thing with RTI. If you look at RTI allows access to those who may not have had access earlier. And there was a study that was done in Delhi which found that a letter of an MLA or an MP had the same amount of effect as an RTI application for getting service delivery. The same way IT helps. For example, you have something called Pragya Kendras or common service centers. Now, for something which required a far lengthier process and allowed for far larger leakages, that has been done away with simply because people can now go up and claim within a stipulated amount of time certain services. Obviously, that services need to be increased. The causes of rejection of those services need to be delved into. Having said that, I think it's an ongoing process. As far as training and cramming people into, that is a skill development issue. However, if you look at one of the things that have not really taken off is the entire, in states, that is the e-filing system. Files are still bulky methods. However, even in states, there are some departments that go in for e-filing and those that remain with the bulky files of the 19th century. I think there are certain low-hanging fruits that need to be identified, taken up and implemented. And once those are done, then the next lot will come in. You can't have IT as a magic wand and then you go to a place, let's say we go to a block and say this is going to be an IT enabled block. And you wave that magic wand and a year later you come back and everything will be hunky-dory. It doesn't work like that.
I think the act of making the plan itself is inherently a good thing because it forces people to look at other perspectives which they had not yet thought of. It enables and supports inclusion. It supports diversity, supports multiple perspectives. The very fact that you are reserving 5% of the developmental budget for the welfare of persons with disabilities, for accessibility features, makes you more sensitized. So I wouldn't say that the act of making plans is not a good in itself. Having said that, predictability of money, now this is an issue that all panchayats have to work with. But I'm happy to say that in Karnataka, for example, apart from Finance Commission and state grants, panchayats, we have been working with panchayats on improving their tax base. And this is where using technology, using the Government of India's Swamitma scheme, as well as using our own digital platform, we're trying to improve the tax base, make tax revision a more scientific and regular exercise, improve the number of services that the panchayat can provide in order to encourage people to pay taxes. And that's an area where we are seeing many gains.